The United States public seems to know very little about the political relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States government. The Islamic royal family dictatorship since 1985 has beheaded more than 2,000 people, including 83 last year. Why support a country that sentences their own people to death for non-fatal crimes, like believing in another religion, selling drugs, or practicing witchcraft? Nearly everyone knows Saudi Arabia has long been one of the world's largest leading exporters of terrorists, including Osama bin Laden himself, who once had a very close relationship with the Saudi royal family. But did you know the largest single sale of weapons to a foreign nation in the history of the United States occurred in 2010, when President Obama quietly sold $60 billion worth of fighter jets and attack helicopters to Saudi Arabia? President Obama is flying to Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to honor the same family that paid Osama bin Laden's construction company billions of dollars to build mosques and palaces. Does this make any sense to you? Does it seem like something very important is missing from the narrative? Well, it might just be. Why did the United States bomb Iraq and Libya? Why did the US, with the help of the Saudis, spend hundreds of millions of dollars on covert operations to destabilize and overthrow Syrian government? Why? It's actually simple and can be described in less than one word, and that's the petrodollar. In 1945, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world reserve currency. This meant international commodities were priced in dollars. This agreement was made under the condition that those dollars would always remain redeemable for gold at a consistent rate of around $35 per ounce. In 1970, it became clear to many countries that the US was printing way more money than it had in gold. When some of these countries started asking for their gold back, it set off a rapid decline in the value of the dollar. A year later, the situation reached a breaking point when France attempted to withdraw their gold and US President Nixon refused. On August 15, 1971, Nixon made a groundbreaking announcement.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you? Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar.
Turns out it wasn't a temporary suspension, but a permanent policy that is still in place to this day. In 1973, President Nixon asked the King of Saudi Arabia to only accept US dollars as payment for oil, and to invest in excess profits in US Treasury bonds, notes, and bills. This may not seem like a big deal to you until you consider Saudi Arabia is the largest producer and exporter of oil in the world. In return, Nixon offered military protection for Saudi oil fields, and the same offer was soon extended to the rest of the world's key oil-producing countries. It wasn't long before every member of OPEC had agreed to only sell oil in US dollars, essentially the petrodollar. By moving the dollar off of gold and tying it to foreign oil, every oil importing country in the world was forced to have a very large supply of US dollars. Why did the US government, with the CIA and corporate media, build up a massive propaganda campaign against Iraq? Well, in November of 2000, Iraq began selling its oil exclusively in euros. After the 2003 US invasion took control of Iraq's oil sales, it was immediately switched back to dollars, even though switching back meant a 20% loss in revenue. Why did the United States and NATO forces, with the help of the CIA and corporate media, build up a propaganda campaign against the president of the African Union to destabilize and topple the Libyan government. While Gaddafi was in the process of organizing African countries to create a gold-based currency called the dinar, which they intended to replace the dollar with. See, those who control the US realize that if just a few countries started selling their oil in another currency, it will set off a chain reaction and the dollar will ultimately collapse.